Hey Tax Pros. I know the number one question on everybody's mind right now is what's going on with these stimulus payments. So I wanted to make a video and kind of explain what each bank is doing and the overall situation. It's going to be a little bit of a long video, but please bear with me. So first off, I want to say that no one expected these payments to be sent out to the refund transfer banks as they were as recently as Monday, right? So they didn't know this was going to happen either. They were just as surprised as we were. So just as a, slight word of grace in their part, bear with them. Obviously, they're working through a situation that they didn't want and didn't expect either. Also keep in mind that their software, their engine, if you will, is not designed to process these types of payments. When they came in from the IRS, they weren't labeled as stimulus payments. So it's not like they could easily go through and say, all right, these are stimulus, these are refunds. Let's keep the refunds and bounce the stimulus. Because really, ultimately, nobody wants to bounce a taxpayer's refund. That would defeat the entire purpose of a bank product. So each bank has decided to handle this differently. And this is just kind of a brief overview of what each bank is doing. I know a lot of the banks are on this page. A lot of the executives at the banks are on this page. So please, if I get anything wrong, jump in, correct me. I'm just trying to get as much information out as I possibly can. So the first one I'll start with is MetaBank, Refund Advantage, and EPS together. Their plan is to bounce all of the deposits that they got, all the stimulus payments, directly back to the IRS. And then the IRS would print a paper check and mail it to the taxpayer's address on file. Now, like I said, these payments were not labeled as stimulus payments. So what they're looking for is basically the dollar amounts that would make sense, right? $1,200. $2,400, stuff like that. So anything that's not an exact dollar amount might pass through. If you see it, if it gets deposited, if there's a check to print, just print it, get it out the door. I know that these are necessary payments. The next one is Santa Barbara. So Santa Barbara, pretty much the same as Refund Advantage, except they do plan to process direct deposits if they can. So a taxpayer that got a direct deposit refund transfer would get their money deposited into their account. They would also, if they were a check or a card, then they should be bounced back to the IRS for a paper check in the mail from the IRS. However, again, they're looking for dollar amounts. These weren't labeled payments. So if anything gets through, you may have to just print out a check for someone and hand it to them. Republic Bank. Republic Bank is planning to process all of the refund transfers that come into them. So if it was a direct deposit, it would be normal. If it was a check or a card, it would be automatically flipped to a check, printed at the bank, and mailed to the taxpayer's address on file. So the ultimate goal there is that you don't have to print any checks yourself. You don't have to interact with any of the taxpayers, but they can still get their money fast. Refundo, they are planning to process all these as well. However, there will be a $35 processing fee taken out of the stimulus payment and basically charged to the to the taxpayer. If the taxpayer doesn't want to pay that fee, they are able to reject the payment, void the check, send it back to the IRS, and wait for a paper check in the mail. That's pretty much everything. It's obviously a mess. I think every single person's phone started ringing at 6 o'clock this morning and probably hasn't stopped ringing yet. But I do just want to say, no one meant for this to happen. Everybody's trying to make the best of a bad situation. And no one really has all the answers. I would just caution you not to make any guesses when you're talking to your taxpayers. So don't say, it'll probably do this, or it'll probably take this long to get back to the IRS. They'll probably take this long to print you a check. Because then what you do is you become the person that, you become the bad guy once that doesn't happen, or if that doesn't happen. And then the problem becomes yours rather than with the IRS. So we're kind of just pawns in this game. We're all doing the best we can to get the payments out, get the taxpayers their money that they obviously very desperately need. But it's not a perfect system. They didn't take the 3, 4 months, 6 months to build a perfect system that they could have. They wanted to get the money out as soon as possible. And that meant using the systems that they have in place, which resulted in us getting some of these funds, us being the refund transfer banks and industry. If you guys have any specific questions, feel free to hit me up, comment here. Obviously, there's going to be a lot of questions, a lot of discussion, a lot of specific cases. But the real goal here is just to keep everyone as informed as possible and try to get through this as best we can. So I hope you're all safe and healthy, and I'll talk to you again soon. Thanks.